Hello, everyone. How are you? Okay, now today we're going to move on in our playlist where we're migrating away from MongoDB to AWS using DynamoDB and Lambda and API Gateway. So in the first video, we added an item to a table in DynamoDB. We added this item, the image, the title, price, and measurements. Now, since the last video, I went ahead and added 3 more items, and you're going to see them here. Now we have a total of 4, and this is what we're going to be reading today using a Lambda function. So that's our second video, is our first Lambda function. Now, I do want to review a little bit with you DynamoDB, so we'll go back here. We'll go to tables. We will find just artwork. We will go to explore table items. We will scroll down, and you see now we have 4 items. If we go into, let's go into number 4 here, and we will look at the JSON view. And we see our properties and our values, and we see that we're using DynamoDB JSON, which is a little bit more complex, where we're defining our data types. We have a string, and a number. So this kind of gave me a little bit of a headache with the Lambda function, but I'll explain that in a little bit. So that's our quick review about of DynamoDB. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to Lambda, which is an AWS service, serverless, that helps us to create, you guessed it, functions. So we're going to click here, and we're going to create our name for the function. Let's call it read all art. Okay? Okay, well, I have one. You can tell I practiced. Let's call it then get all art. Change that name, no problem. Okay, let's work with Python. I find that's a little bit easier to work with. So let's create that function. And I'll remind you, while we wait, please like and subscribe and share and all that wonderful stuff. And okay, here we go. So let's go down. We have some tabs here. We're going to look at code and configuration today. Let's start with code, where we have a couple of tabs here. And, like a default Python function here. Hello from Lambda. All right, let's replace that with a function that I have ready for us. I'll tell you that I asked ChatGPT to write a Python Lambda function that queries all items from a DynamoDB table. And this was definitely not the first result I got back. I needed to do a lot of refactoring to get a good result. And so anyway, let's talk about this function. We'll not go line by line, because if you stop to go through all the details, you'll have a 42-hour video. So let's just function on a couple things here. We have a just artwork table that we got from DynamoDB, and so we're going to call that table name. And then we have a response variable, which is going to be the result of scanning that just artwork table. And then this is where I needed to do some work refactoring, because what I wanted was like the simplest representation of the data. So basically in this block of code, we're getting the list, and we're getting the values of the properties dependent on their data type. And that's how I was able to do it. So that's the list. And then we assign the body items here, so that the returning to the front end, we get that list. And it's going to be easier to work with on the front end. Okay, so that's it. That is basically our function. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to Lambda. I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to go to configure test event. Okay, let's call this get all art again. This is not very important when we're reading all the data. It will be more important in the second function when we're working with dynamic values. So we're just going to click save. Okay, anyway. Then we can click deploy to basically save this function. And we go back to test and we test the function. And we're going to have a small problem that I was expecting, which is access denied exception. So let me explain something about AWS services. You need to grant permissions many times for services to work with each other. For example, this Lambda function right now cannot access our DynamoDB table. It's not allowed, so we have to give it permission. So if you remember, I talked about configuration. We're going to go over to configuration. So every time you create a Lambda function, you're automatically given a role for that function, which is just consider it connected to permissions. So we're going to go to that role. Now, when I click this, we're going to open up another tab. We're going to be going to IAM, Identity and Access Management. To keep it simple, just think that this is a service that gives you permissions, one service getting a permission to work with another service, keeping it simple. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go here to add permissions. I'm going to click here. I'm going to create an inline policy that's going to be attached to my role eventually. So we're going to work with JSON, expand it here. Okay, so this is the default information going back to Notion. And I will have everything. I don't think I set this yet. I will have everything in a README. So if you want to copy and paste stuff, you'll be able to. So let's go to the policy and roles. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this here. And let's review this a little bit. Let's focus on effect, action, and resource. So this policy is saying allow. Okay, so we're allowing the Lambda function to do something. What are we allowing it to do? Well, we're allowing it to interact with DynamoDB and perform a scan and a query. And here with resource, we're referring to a specific DynamoDB table, the just artwork. This is like a specific ID name. ARN it stands for Amazon resource name. So that's being specific to this table. All right, so now we did that. We're going to go to next. And let's enter a meaningful name. Yeah, it tells you. All right, so let's do get all art policy. And we're going to go scroll down, create the policy. All right, now it is attached. So now what I'm expecting to happen is some really good news. Go back to Lambda. Okay. We're going to go back to code. Okay. And now when I go back to Lambda function, I expect to test and to have great success. Ooh, very nice. We got our data. We got it in a simple list format. I want to say array because I think JavaScript a lot of time, but a list for Python, array in JavaScript. Any which way, we were very successful. And that's where I'm going to stop today. I was thinking about doing the second function when we go ahead and grab the one specific item, but I don't want the video to be that long. So that's going to be the next video in the playlist, creating the second Lambda function. Okay, thank you so much for your support. I really hope you like the video content. Again, subscribe, like, share. Any constructive criticism in the comments are greatly appreciated. And have a great rest of your day.